morning. I was just going to speak today a little bit about my thoughts on a ascendant progression of Gemini into Cancer. This is coming from the perspective of someone who was born with the 28th degree of Taurus, and so I very quickly moved into progressed into the Gemini ascendant. I also have a North Node Gemini, so keep that in mind as I share my experience, because I'm sure that intensified my Gemini experience. But if your North Node is also in Gemini, this might be helpful for you to hear my experience. So, my early life was very characterized by mental activity. I was a good student. I was a voracious reader. It was definitely my favorite pastime was reading. My dad would take me to the library every weekend. I would check out books and I would proceed to spend the rest of my weekend reading. And I loved it. And when I was at home, I would read. I remember trying to read the entire Bible as a 12-year-old. And my mom and dad were not religious people, so that in and of itself is, I got myself involved with a religious community, and I was just I guess that's more of a spiritual, 12th house thing, which I do have a 12th house stellium with my sun and my moon and my Venus and my Mercury, so that kind of, I don't know, that'd be more of a 9th house. Anyway, it happened. That may not be important. That may be indicative of something else. But, so I want to stick to the Gemini aspect. So very mentally active. And that continued into college. I was a language major. I loved language and anthropology, which is a little bit Gemini in nature. The language part of it. Sorry, I'm driving. Probably not the best, idea, but it's a pretty slow morning. I guess the big point of it all is that I do want to make a side note really quick, because I find this really interesting, and just in case I don't think of this again. So my Gemini is North Node, and my life has always had a duality to it. So my parents divorced when I was 5, and for a very short time they lived in the same town. But then my mom and stepfather moved to the country. I mean, it was a 20-minute drive and over an hour-long bus drive for me to get to my school, which was in a town of 487 people. Okay, my graduating class was 52 people, so tiny, 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 tiny. Whereas my dad lived in one of the biggest cities in the United States. So every weekend, I packed up in my mom's little car, and we drove halfway to meet my dad, and then he would take me to, his house. So I lived half in the remotest of rural country places, and half in one of the biggest cities in the United States. So from the very beginning, that was my life experience. It'd be interesting to see if about that time, because I was 5 to 6, is when my ascendant changed over into Gemini from Taurus. It'd be very interesting to go back and look. I need to do that at some time. So, because of the duality. So after that happened, another sort of manifestation of duality was I myself got a divorce not that long ago, and then my fiance now and I live in 2 different towns. Now the towns aren't as different as being in a small town and being in a huge city, but what is hugely different is I have 5 children, which you'll see their little gaming videos and things like that on this channel. I live half my life as a mother to 5 children, a single mom with 5 kids, and the other half as the fiance to my fiance, I was going to say my partner, who is 10 years younger than me, so in a very different stage of life. And just, you know, people kind of look at me and scratch their head and they're like, how do you do that? You know, it's just like 2 very, very different realities, and it is. So I'm thinking that's Gemini North Node manifesting sort of things. Anyway, because, you know, there was never anything in me that was like, wow, I really want to be with someone 10 years younger than me. I really only want to be with my kids half the time. You know, that was never on my radar. So my life just kind of finds itself in this really dual kind of thing. And my religious experience has always been very much trying to figure out duality as well. You know, like I'm able to see reasoning behind different denominations, completely different religions, you know, maybe, yeah, as the opposite of Sagittarius, that does make sense because, you know, Sagittarius low vibration is to be very dogmatic and be like, I know what I know and this is what I know and don't tell me any different. I mean, at the low vibration. So don't be sad, Sages, because I was born with a Sagittarius moon and, you know, I feel like I get that energy too. And I've been that way at different times in my life when I felt like, okay, I need to totally commit to this religion or this thought or this idea or this diet or whatever, and this is the right way and this is the only way and blah, 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 blah. So, you know, I've been in that Sagittarius energy before, in that low vibe, but in the vibe of Gemini, which is opposite to that, is just the ability to hold so many different versions of a thing. So it's like that quote that I can't get it totally right, but it's like many paths, one truth. I don't know if that's Taoist or Hindu. I mean, you're gonna have to help me out. I heard it somewhere along the way, but you know, as someone with all that Gemini energy, I'm like, I can see that. You know, I can see that there's strings of commonality, and I can, you know, with the detachedness of Gemini, you can see, I guess, kind of the pointlessness in committing to one, because you know, you're almost just like, well, one's just as good as the other. However, if I fully commit to this one, I'm missing out on all the other, you know, so why not stay open to all of it, if that makes sense. It's, maybe that's a Gemini way of thinking, so you'll have to let me know. Not non-committal in the sense of, you know, partners or people or things like that. That's not, you know, something that I have a problem with, actually. I think my 8th house stellium, you know, makes me take intimacy very, very seriously. I think that's what made me stay in a relationship that was lackluster and give so much to it for so long. With no disrespect to my ex-husband, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't wholly his fault. It wasn't wholly my fault. That's just how relationships go. However, you know, I think I am committed to the point of my own detriment. You know, so I don't know. Take that for what it is. I think that people deserve to pursue their happiness, you know, in a way that honors other people and is honest with other people. So, and you yourself know if you have done that, if you have lived up to your own integrity I digress again. Part 2 coming up.